Hello, this is video 41. At this point, we know all about conditions, or so I shall claim. Let's use them. Using conditions, and I'm going to be writing condition on the board so often, I'm going to stick to this abbreviation, COND. Using conditions to skip SKIP statements, STMTS. Heavily abbreviated. That says using conditions to skip statements. We do that with an if statement, STMT. If statements are so important. How important are they? Well, funny you should ask. They have actually two formats. Format 1, the first format for an if statement. The word if, that's a reserved word. Can't use it as an identifier to have a variable named if. Off limits. And then condition, pointing brackets, condition. And then a colon. You got to have a colon. And here the editor will try to help you. When you type in if x is equal to 6 or whatever your condition is in a colon and enter, it will indent because it needs to. Indented statements are what follow the if line. INDENTED, indented, STMTS, indented statements. The effect of an if statement format 1, such as this one. If condition is true, then indented statements is or are executed. I mean, is that a single token or does it represent multiple statements? I'll think about that while I'm writing it down. Indented statements. I'm going to view that as a single thing and make it singular. Then indented statements is executed. And if that excuse is not good enough, I was born in Arkansas, so I can use bad grammar if I want to. If condition is true, then, well, I should say by whom, We're not going to do it ourselves. Is executed by the CPU. I suppose that goes without saying, and that's why it went without saying. Condition is true, that indented statements is executed by the CPU is the next part of your program. Otherwise, indented statements is skipped. I'll stick with singular. INDENTED, STMTS is skipped. For example, I'll do the example in blue, just to mix it up. Examples are blue today. Example. Bargains, BARGAINS, equals 0. That's not an if statement. That's just set up. And that's not, I'll put dots up above here. This is not going to be an entire Python program, just a little piece, a segment of a Python program just for us to take a look at. If eggs, EGGS, eggs is not a reserved word in Python, so I can use that as a variable if I want to. If eggs greater than 12, colon, and visualize me pressing enter after I type that in, the editor will indent over for me and I will print, double quote, more than a dozen. Exclamation point, close double quote, close parentheses. And I'll increment. Increment is a word that says I'm going to bump it up, typically by 1. I'm going to increment bargain. So I'll have to say bargain. Now, I don't know if this is a top 5 error, but it could still be an error, and you got to be careful with it. If I just said bargain plus 1 right here, that would be an expression, but it doesn't change the value of anything. If I want to increment it by 1 and make that the new value, I got to say bargain equals bargain plus 1. That is an increment statement. And that's all I want to be conditionally executed. That's how we describe these. All these new terms flying around. But these two statements will be conditionally executed based on the outcome of that condition. And then I'll unindent and say print parentheses, double quote, want an omelet, O-M-E-L-E-T-T-E. That's the new spelling of it, if that's incorrect. I don't know. Want an omelet, question mark, double quote, close parentheses. Okay, and dots after that. That's probably not the end of the program either. That's just a piece of a program that we want to examine and predict what the output is with this trace over here. Hope you can see this. Trace. Looks like I got two variables I'm working with, bargain and eggs. And let's pretend, shall we? Let's pretend that bargain, maybe that had a value before we got here and we're just now setting it to 0, but we don't know what it is. And don't know, I explicitly put in my traces that I don't know by putting a question mark. What could it be? Eggs, I'm going to have to pretend a little further because this is assuming eggs already has the value. Maybe they typed in a number of eggs from the keyboard. And maybe they typed in 20. Holy moly. Let's see if we can predict what the output will be. Shall we see? Bargain equals 0. That's an assignment statement. Start on the right-hand side. The right-hand side is an expression that has value goose egg, also known as 0. 0 becomes the new value of bargain, so it's no longer an unknown quantity. It is exactly 0. I'm pretending eggs already had a value by the time we got here. Still got to look it up in memory. Is it true that the current value of eggs is greater than 12? Yes, 20 is greater than 12. So it is going to print more than a dozen. With an exclamation point. It is going to say on the right-hand side, take the current value of bargain, add 1 to that. Okay, the current value of bargain is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. Make that the new value of bargain on the left. So the new value of bargain is 1. Big bold 1 over here. This unindented statement is not part of the official indented statements that are controlled by this if statement. In other words, this will be executed unconditionally. It doesn't matter whether this condition is true or false for the unindented statements that follow to be executed. They're going to be done no matter what. So at this point, we don't care what eggs are anymore. Eggs is. Print want an omelet. So it will print want an omelet. And there you have it. Complete trace. Bargain got set to 0 regardless of what it was before. Eggs was greater than 12, so it does print out more than a dozen because it's inside the indented statements controlled by that if statement. Bargain equals bargain plus 1. Bargain got incremented on the right, and that became the new value bargain. Then regardless of whatever has happened before we got to this point, it will print want an omelet when it gets down here. There, we've got it all figured out. Except that we don't. There's more than one possible execution path. Yet another term, execution path, means the instructions that will be executed when this program is run. It's a very simple idea. It's executing a path through your program. The first statement, the second statement, the third statement in sequence. There's more than one possible execution path here. Let's see if we can cover the other one in yet a different color. How about hot pink? Well, I don't know that that'll show up. Hot red. Bargain. I'm still going to say that's unknown. I don't know. I don't care what it is before I get to that point. Eggs. How did it get a value? I don't know. That's beyond the scope of this little sequence of statements here. Let's say eggs is 7. See where this is going? Not very far. Let's predict the output. Here we come along our execution path, merrily executing along. We get to this line, bargain equals 0. You know, even reading that is a little bit off. Bargain equals 0. It does not. Bargain might be 105 over here. This, think of it, it's safer to think of it as set bargain to 0, or whatever's on the right-hand side. 0's on the right-hand side. Take that 0 and put it in variable bargain. Yes, there we go. Now then, If eggs is greater than 12, let's pause and reflect on that. Is it true? Is the condition true that eggs is greater than 12? Notice I didn't change any of this code over here at all. It depends on what the variables are, what their values are when I get to this sequence of lines. So it could be different not every single time you run the program. Sometimes it's going to have to repeat the same logic. But we can't predict in advance what it's going to do until we know the values of the variables. That's the moral of that story. If eggs greater than 12, it isn't, it's false. Oh no, what does it do? It does the otherwise. Otherwise, all the indented statements, there are 2 statements here, it'll skip over those. So the only output we're going to get out of it this time is want an omelet. That's it. That's all we get out of all that blue writing if bargain had an unknown value and eggs had 7 when we got there. Okay? This is such important stuff. These are videos that you might want to backtrack and watch again if there's any part of it that's not clear. Because if this isn't clear, then we're going nowhere. And I'll see you online.